Welcome to another episode of The Worthy Physician. I'm your host, Dr. Shah-Haque, reigniting your humanity and passion for medicine. With each episode, we bring you inspiring stories, actionable insight, and expert advice. Get ready for another engaging conversation that could change the way you think and live. As a physician, your income is your greatest asset. Protect it with Pattern Life, the easy, stress-free way to find the right disability insurance. With unbiased comparisons and no jargon, Pattern helps you to choose the best policy for your needs. Secure your future today at Pattern Life. The link is in the show notes. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of The Worthy Physician. I'm your host, Dr. Shah-Haque, reigniting your humanity and passion for medicine. And today I'm going to get into what I'm excited about, having this conversation with Dr. Manju Dawkins about a non-traditional approach to medicine and creativity and what that means to bring those two to the table. So Manju, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having. This is going to be fun.
It is going to be fun, isn't it? I really enjoyed our pre-recording discussion. It's nice getting to know another human being that happens to be a physician on a human level.
Sometimes we forget that we're humans, don't we?
Yeah, I think we do. Where do you think that happens along the training process?
That's a great question. It's definitely like beat into during medical school. What? You don't deserve to pee. You don't deserve to eat. You must retract.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're young and impressionable at that time. And we think that's normal, and not only normal, but we think that's valiant and good. And I think we think that really starts to then puff up our egos to think, well, look at me. I don't have to pee for 12 hours and I don't have to eat. And look at me. But it's all silliness when you really pull back and think about it all, because we're humans.
Oh, yeah. At some point early in our training, I do think you're right. With medical school, we learn to acquiesce to the calls of nature and the calls of our body. It's almost like we become very disconnected and rewarded in some archaic way for not paying attention to our own bodies. If you're a nephrologist, urologist listening, I'm sure you're not going to be thrilled with that. Haven't peed for 12 hours. Okay, how dehydrated are you? What's your skin telling you? What are your kidneys telling you? But all joking aside, reflecting on that, it's really scary and sad.
It really is. And I think it really harms you. Well, not only in the long run, but in the short term, obviously, because, your kidneys. But yeah, I think when you're doing that, when you're sacrificing your body for someone else or something else, you're sacrificing yourself and your soul, and that never ends well. So I think a lot of us are waking up to the fact that why did I neglect myself in this process, or why am I still doing it to myself? Because I think it's a really hard habit to break, because, where I always say it's like these train tracks and you're on them for so long and you have blinders on, you can't see outside of it. And then you're so far along at a certain point, you're like, oh my God, I'm stuck here. And you're never stuck. It's not true.
So I have two questions for you. What do you mean by it hurts your soul? I've never heard it phrased that way, or if I have, it didn't stick out the way it does just now.
I think we all have something inside of us. That I will call the soul, whatever it is. And it's what we want and what we choose and what we prefer. And I think a lot of the times that the way we live is we are living for other people. We start out trying to please our parents, and then we try to please our coaches and professors and bosses, but you're never listening to yourself. But I think it's really important, because I think it's the way to happiness and the way to satisfaction and joy and all of those things. So I think it's really hard for everyone, not just doctors, but we're all searching for this happiness and joy and wondering why we can't attain it. But we're still, again, trying to make everyone happy around us. And we glorify self-sacrifice, but we can't sacrifice the self. It reminds me of the whole idea of you cannot take care of other people until you've taken care of yourself, the oxygen mask thing. And until we all try it out, which is hard in the culture, to take care of ourselves first, and then you can see how much better you can take care of others. Yeah, it's important.
Thank you for highlighting that. And yeah, if you can't look and see what your own purpose is, because we know that purpose is part of the happiness equation, if you will. In addition to, I don't think happiness is something to chase. I think it's a daily choice, regardless of what's happening around us. And realizing that we do have the power to change our reality based on the choices we make. Sometimes it might be difficult to do that, and to showcase that, we were discussing how not everything's on fire. Not everything's on fire, proverbially, because we did have great fires in the Los Angeles area, but that was literally on fire. Not everything in our path is literally on fire. Not everything's an emergency. When do you think that we learned or we lost the ability as physicians or in training, it might just be on a personal level, when did we lose the ability to kind of be present in the moment and take time to smell the flowers or enjoy the aroma and actual taste of coffee instead of just pounding it down and walking?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think it is societal. It's definitely been there for my lifetime. So I don't know when it started, but it's such a good point. And I think it's so important for us physicians to talk about it, because that whole idea that everyone feels like everything's an emergency all the time. Oh, I gotta pick up my kids. I'm gonna be late for drop. My patients are waiting for everything is always like a panic and an emergency. And for us human beings to live like that all the time is not good for our bodies, because what's happening with our cords, all those things, right? Like we're always in fight or flight, like all of us human beings right now. And it's not healthy. And then we wonder why we have all of these chronic diseases. There's pretty good reason for it. And I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that, wait a minute, what am I doing? I feel terrible and I want to change that. And then coming back to sitting down and enjoying your coffee and going to smell a flower and like feeling that joy in that simple moment, rather than seeking some kind of external validation or external goal or something to give us that. Like it is that sitting down and look, I found this seashell on the beach, and like how miraculous that, like that, there's a rainbow in this seashell. This is incredible. That is joy. And we got to get back there.
How did you make your way back there? Or are you still trying to figure that out?
Yeah, I think that's the human condition, is to always be figuring it out. But I think like there are these moments, and I see it more and more. And ironically, yeah, like it came through this like non-traditional path of entrepreneurship, because it to be totally frank, it's like another set of train tracks, entrepreneurship, because everything is always on fire there too. At least that's the way the world makes you feel. But then I made that choice. Like I'm the one who chose to do that. And so I get to choose how I'm going to live that. And in the process, I've been lucky to be able to do these accelerators and things. And what's amazing is there's a lot of focus on the individual, like taking care of yourself, which is like so refreshing compared to coming from medicine. And so they even say things like you got to take breaks and you got to have retreats and look inside yourself. Like these just like really simple, basic things that like in medicine, like no one ever said that. And then you realize, oh, wow, I am so much more effective when I go for a walk in the morning and think about nothing and then come back to work. Like it's actually making me more productive. That shouldn't be the goal, I don't think, but it's the truth. So I'm trying.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, isn't there? You're carving out time for yourself. You're connecting with outside if you're going walking outside, and you're allowing for that not being in fight or flight, which has a lot of, we know that when you're not in fight or flight, you can actually think, and that's where creativity comes in, and that would totally make sense. How and why would make you more effective or productive?
Absolutely. Actually, when you say that, it's reminding me, something I read was talking about what we need to live, like to survive on planet Earth. And of course, like air, we have to breathe, water, and everyone thinks the third one is food, but it's actually sleep. Like we will die if we don't sleep. And that's so important, because in medicine, in training, and like lots of attendings don't sleep with any regularity. But that's going to kill us, right? And then one of the other things, and I don't remember all of them, but one of the other things was something like creativity or purpose. And we don't really think of that as being necessary for survival, but in a lot of ways it is. I think when any of us are in any kind of position in jobs and stuff, and we lose the ability to be creative and to have joy in whatever we're doing and put ourselves into it, right? When we have to fit someone else's mold to do that job, it really drains you, and you just can't keep going, and that's burnout. So it's interesting.
Now, you started out, you're a dermatologist, correct? Now you're an entrepreneur. And how did you make that shift?
Yeah, it's silly for me to be talking about it, because dermatology is really amazing, and I'm very blessed to be a dermatologist, and I love it. And I still do practice on a limited basis. But what happened was it started when I was a dermatology resident. I had my first daughter, which was its own challenge, which everyone I'm sure knows about too. But yeah, when I took her in for her first vaccines when she was about a month old, I thought I knew what I was doing on the doctor front anyway. And then when she got stuck by the pediatrician, she just looked at me with just like bewilderment, betrayal, like, how could you let that happen? And I was like, I don't know. What have I done? This is crazy. It was 2010 and this is how we're doing things. This is insane. And so, yeah, I just felt like a total failure. And then, yeah, was able to solve my own problem because my friends were all doctors. And so they could prescribe me a prescription EMLA, which is difficult to use and has some side effects and things like that. But that was what my training was about. Like, how do I mitigate all that? So it worked miraculously for me. I was like, oh man, everybody needs to be doing this. And it took many years later that I was talking to a friend and I was like, you know what you need to do? And I said this whole idea for Thimble, which is my company that's all about alleviating the pain and fear of needles, and just realizing like how big of a problem. It's not just me. This is like everybody. Nobody likes needles, and this is a really problem that prevents people from engaging in healthcare. We got to do something about it. And it just felt like, because at every point, it's just like, why am I doing this? Even now, what am I doing? This is insane. Like, I have a very nice regular job. Like, it's awesome. And it pays me nicely and all of that. But it just feels like there's this problem that really needs solving. And if not me, then who? Like, I got to try and I got to do it. And a part of it is just seeing just the transformation in healthcare over the past 20 years. It's sad. It makes me so sad to see like the completely fractured relationship between patients and healthcare workers and how we're pitted against each other and how we have no time with each other. And that's all, to me, it feels very intentional because there is a third party puppet, controlling the play over here. But we have to choose to remember that we are human beings who are on the same team, who are actually trying to help each other. And so for me, a part of this is like just giving people an opportunity to say, hey, I know this is hard. I understand. And I want this to be better for you on both sides, right? Of course, like we want the patient to feel better. But on the other side too, like patients are understanding also, man, you are seeing way too many patients in one day, or are you okay? So it's like that understanding is starting to build. And anyways, I hope to be a part of that.
Thank you for highlighting that. And no, all joking aside, I think dermatology does not get enough respect because I can't do much with skin as an internist. It's not a lot of training, or we don't have a lot of tools in our wheelhouse, but the amount of patients that you have to see and the procedures, even though it's well compensated, it is also a different level of risk. And I think that should be respected. And you also have to have mad skills and precision. Don't discount that, please.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. We all, like every specialty, and that's another thing that entrepreneurship has opened my eyes to is, man, everyone has an expertise in whatever it is that they're doing a lot of. And like, we need to respect that at every turn. And we can't make assumptions about what the other people are doing. And I think, I don't know if you agree, but I feel like, man, in medicine, we are the worst at that. Like we pit specialties against each other. We tear each other down. And it's crazy. Like we're all, again, on the same team. We just need to respect each other. That's it.
Yeah. It goes back to one of the topics we were discussing before the recording about giving each other more grace.
Yeah.
As human beings, as colleagues, as co-inhabitants of Earth, I don't know when grace was forfeited a lot, but I think it might go back to a lot of everything's on fire, everything has to be fast and efficient. And so I think it comes with a lot of the modern day culture. It's sad.
It's so sad. And actually, I don't know, like you were asking, like, when did it start? I'm not sure, but I did read this fascinating book called Do Nothing by Celeste Headley, which is amazing. Highly recommend because she goes into the history of this kind of overwork culture. And I don't want to say the details exactly, but something around the Industrial Revolution when kind of productivity and maximizing everything became everything, the culture started to shift too. And the way religion was used, specifically Christianity and Catholic, so I can understand this part, like the way guilt is utilized to motivate, and also this idea of working hard being virtuous. I thought that was just the truth, like hard work equals you're a good person. But that book really illuminated the idea that like, no, that's actually a pretty new idea. And that book really opened my eyes to again, every person has value. Even that person that sits on the couch all day has a ton of value because we don't know what they're doing for someone else emotionally or something that we can't even see. Like we have no idea. So we can't judge. And we also have to give ourselves grace, and we get to sit on the couch when we want to. And that's okay. And that doesn't make us a bad person. It makes us human because we need to rest too. And also it just makes you realize like when externally at work or your investors or advisors are like, you get to be your own person and decide, wait a minute, here's what I need right now. I'm going to take this time, take this space, period.
Yeah, to get there, it might take some work because going back to the beginning of our conversation, we were trained to start to ignore those signs and signals to keep persevering and be productive. And now to undo that is going to take time, not to not be productive, but to have that balance of, okay, I'm listening to my body. I need to rest. I need to sleep. I need to make sure I'm fueling my body efficiently, meeting my spiritual, physical, emotional, psychological needs. And thank you for showcasing that about guilt, because Catholic guilt has a bad reputation, but I think it's a lot of cultural and not so much Catholic guilt, because a being is not going to guilt us into that. That higher being gives us a lot of grace.
Exactly that. And it makes you realize, oh, guilt has nothing to do with any religion or spiritual anything. It makes you realize like guilt is completely functionless, actually. Like for you to have guilt about something, nothing good productivity wise comes from a place of guilt. But if you're doing something out of excitement, out of joy, wow, the result's going to be amazing. And I don't know, I'm not joking. I literally only realized that probably 4 months ago. Like guilt, because I think we're all so used to functioning on guilt that we think there's no other way. But yeah, it's useless. It's a useless emotion. And like you said, any higher power would never want guilt to be the driver. So we know that's not where it's coming from.
Yeah. This is interesting because I just listened to a lecture by Father Mike with Ascension Presents on guilt. And it's like Catholic guilt is actually a farce, because for all the reasons why you just said. And then just finished the book, Living in God's Grace by Max Lucado, who's a pastor. But it was very changing on the way I see grace, because we don't know what's in each other's hearts. We don't know what's motivating the other person. So we really need to approach with grace and try to exude that from the higher power, which is love, which is patience, which is kindness, is forgiving. Anything going back to purpose, living within that, embracing those type of things. And again, it takes time. It took me at least 3 years to understand some of these concepts. And I'm 42, and now they're just starting to click. I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? But it's again giving myself grace. Okay, I'm human. I've learned, and now now that I know better, how do I continue to do better?
Yes, the learning never stopped. Same. I'm in my 40s too, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What was it? Where was I? What was my brain off all this time? But actually, what was off was probably not our brains, but our hearts. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%.
Because we shut them off. We have to, because we've got to keep the brain like, doing all the things that the world needs us to, or wants us to anyway.
So how do you balance the expectations of a dermatologist with being an entrepreneur, and then all the other hats that you wear in life?
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm not sure. But one thing that it's all part of this is that there's a lot of judgment around doctors who do anything else but see patients. And I say this all the time, but the system wants us to just put our heads down, have the blinders on, and see the patients, because that's going to make a whole lot of other people a whole lot of money. And that's nice and everything that, but that's crazy. That's crazy. We shouldn't let the degree limit us. We should let that degree expand our opportunities. So I think it's really important. And I love seeing what's happening. There's so many doctors that are now going into government and media and entrepreneurship and all these other things, podcasting, right? Like to have a voice in other spaces is so important. And we bring our own expertise in whatever it is, and even just in our own understanding of human beings, because we talk to a lot of human beings, and that's valuable. I think it's so important. And so it goes back to giving myself grace, because, I have this amazing specialty. I love it. Is it right for me to try this other thing? Was definitely, and is still there, frankly. But I have to look inside myself and figure out, what is my purpose for right now? And it might change, right? Like I might come back to practice full time. I don't know what's going to happen, but right now, this is, I think, where I'm supposed to be. And then speaking of guilt, then there's also the kind of mom guilt, which is always there, and it ebbs and flows. And people will tell you like, oh no, I'm sure they're proud of you. And you're setting a good example. Is any of that true? Who knows? They probably will be, maybe are, but it's always fluctuating. And I think I always have to ask myself, like, is this the right thing for right now? And for right now, it is. And we'll see, how it all lands. But all we can do is do our best in this moment. And so it really does go back to just giving myself grace at every hard turn. Yeah.
Thank you for highlighting that. Let's unpack a lot of that. For right now, it's the right thing. So you establish that you're evaluating and reevaluating, not because you're not happy, but because you understand that life changes. Purpose changes.
Which hard for us, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's changed. Because I didn't understand that either. I was just like, my purpose is to help patients through being a doctor. Period. The end. That's it. But who said that was true? Yeah.
Somebody that wrote the script but is not in the room helping you manage your life.
True.
So you've used your expertise as a dermatologist to help alleviate pain with shots, immunizations, and even blood draws, correct? So that's hellaciously ingenious, because that's a problem everybody has, right? No matter what specialty, no matter what part of the world you're in. We know that the fear of needles is a big, not the only barrier, but is a big barrier. And you're talking to somebody that I'm terrified of needle. Okay. So I would be your ideal client or patient. So if you're using your expertise, you're using your physician mind, well, let's put physician aside. You're using your mind, you're using science to help alleviate a problem. You have a solution. Why the hell not?
Yeah, I think so. And at different points, I was like, oh, I think I can help more people by doing this. And I hope that's exactly what happens. Like, we'll see. We'll see. And I don't mean to say it because the reason I'm pausing on it is because this whole idea of helping people, that doesn't have to, that does drive me. That drives me. But I just am a little bit hesitant about making it seem like that's the only thing that purpose can be, because purpose can be lots of things, because we can help people through so many different means, just like creating art is helping humanity, period. And with no intention of helping other people, but just the act of creation is so important. So anyways, I just wanted to caveat that, but
problem solving, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But I really, I don't know. I've just been thinking about this. Just like people who just make a sandcastle on the beach and just like put their whole heart into it. And they probably just did it because they wanted to and not for anyone else to see it because they know it's going to be washed away by the sand. But I don't know, just that act of creation itself is powerful. And then it just happened actually. And I just walked by the sandcastle the other day and I was like, how beautiful is that? And that just made my day. That person had no intention of doing necessarily, but it was important and it was valuable. And that person fulfilled purpose in that moment. And they had no idea they did it, maybe. I don't know. So it's a little off tangent. It was just something I was thinking about in the past week, that we don't have to glorify purpose to be this one thing, that it can be so many things.
No, I appreciate that. And it's not so much the idea of helping. And then in the same sentence, I will say just because it's something to help somebody or improve something or solve a problem does not mean it needs to be free.
That's a great point and a lesson that physicians need to learn too.
How far were you into entrepreneurship when you felt comfortable saying this is the price because I have to keep doors open, I have to keep R&D going? Like, how did you make that switch from don't ask for money versus it's okay?
Yeah, no, it's such a good question and something that's been very difficult for me because we're used to just giving and giving. And yeah, I mean, this is all still a challenge for me because sometimes people say the way I talk about the business, it's like you're running a nonprofit. It's like a nonprofit. And no, this is a product and it is not a nonprofit. But just because you have an intention of impact doesn't mean it's a nonprofit. And I also think that in the culture that we live in now, for-profit is the thing that speaks to power. And so that's why I wanted this to be a for-profit business. And I would like to show that you can have intention, you can try to do something that you think is good in the world, and it can make a profit for people. It can help people financially too. And that doesn't have to be our only goal. Because for me personally, I do feel a sense of frustration around the fact that everything is centered around, are we making money? Are we making people more money over here? And it's not, are we making everyone more money? It's, are we making the people with a lot of money more money, period. And that's the only thing that matters. And I think that our society is ready for a change because that's all well and good, but until it's not. And I think we're at the point where it's not.
It's not.
And I think you can build companies that will continue to make money, but that will serve what I believe is a greater purpose. TBD, we shall see. But then beyond that, yeah, I mean, there's this recurrent theme of martyrdom that comes up. For me, I felt, I need to do this and I can't take a salary. And it was hard for me to raise money because I was like, I don't want to ask people for money. But people had to explain to me, like, you're not asking, this is not a charity. You have a great business and you're giving them the opportunity to invest in something that's going to be awesome. And then I was like, like you said, it takes time and it takes work to really feel that in your body and to know that in your heart and your mind and all of those things. Yeah, but it's true. And so then when you know it's true, then it becomes easier. And so that's where we are.
So time, practice, and acceptance probably. And yeah, I'm a capitalist, but I also like to make sure that it's ethical.
Yeah, that's a great way. I'm sure these things have already been named and things like that. But yeah, capitalism is a wonderful, beautiful thing. And how do we do it so that it actually is beneficial to everyone and not harmful? I guess actually this goes back to being a doctor and what we all, I think, agree with. Do no harm. That's it. Like capitalism is awesome, but we must always keep that kind of mantra in mind. Do no harm. We cannot. Yeah.
I really enjoyed this conversation
too.
Listeners, how can they learn more about you, reach out to you, and learn more about Thimble?
So we are available on our website, thimblehealth.com. And we are also on social media on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at thimble.health. And please reach out on LinkedIn. I love to hear and learn because, man, every conversation I learn something new, like a new application for all of this or like a new way of thinking about it. So yeah, would love to hear from you on LinkedIn. I think those are the ways.
Appreciate those, and those will be in the show note. What is one last pearl of wisdom wisdom you would like to leave our listeners?
Be yourself. What I mean by that is going back to the beginning of the conversation, like a lot of growing up and becoming an adult is learning to fit the mold of society. But then I think this time in our lives is to then come back to who we actually are and to be comfortable with that and to realize that when you're actually who you are, like so much beauty arises from that. It's scary, but I think worth it. And I think is part of what leads to the joy and happiness that we're all searching for.
That's beautifully said. I watch my young kids and I'm in awe of how authentic and unfiltered they are. And once we learn how to get back to that more so, I think we start to find our true selves, our true purpose, and true happiness, regardless of what's happening around us, because we have control over our internal thoughts, words, and actions.
Exactly. And when we have control over those internal things, our external world changes.
Absolutely. And my goodness, it can take many lifetimes to master all of that. But I think we have to do the best we can with what we've got in the situation we're in and give ourselves grace that no, it may not be perfect, but being human is so messy and it can be so much fun. True. Manju, thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And listeners, if any of this part has spoken to you, okay, so we'll edit that out. So to the listeners, I hope this has struck as much happiness in you as it has in me just having this conversation, because I think truly these are the conversations that bring out the best in us as human beings. So subscribe and share with a friend. Thanks for tuning in to another episode from the Worthy Physician Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd love it too. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram for more updates and insights. Until next time, keep inspiring, learning, growing, and living your best life.